I just can't think of a good way to formulate this right now. Please leave a comment if you do find a good way to formulate this.
I don't right away. I will need some time. But now, what you could do is ask the AI. Actually, let me try this. Since it's a video and I'm lazy, I don't want to type this in. I will just do OCR. So that's a flow that before didn't exist. And by the way, if you want to use OCR, having a high color contrast will help. So, okay. So that's the question. What was an ethical practice? What unethical practice was involved in the Tuskegee syphilis study? Deliberately untreated syphilis. Medical professionals deliberately left the men untreated as a part of the study. Which men? I already know they were African American. Here you go. This is kept, it's left out. Okay. Who conducted? Okay, the US Public Health Service. Okay. When it took place, that's not relevant. It lasted 40 years. So if I know that lasted 40 years, I only need to memorize one date. When it started or when it finished. In my case, it's easier for me to remember the start because it's a lot closer to a big event I already know, that is the Second World War. So this will be easier for me to remember, and if I do the quick math, 32 plus 40, 72. I don't even need to memorize that, in case I do care. If I have a lot more facts in this timeline, or in these concepts of trials, and I want to have this chronological order more easy to recall, I could do it. But for me, if I do it, it will be very low priority. But today, I will not even do this card. And what was this study? To experiment on untreated, So what I want is actually to make this connection that, hey, it's an example of a case of A/B testing that is unethical. One of the strategies I can use is to fully memorize this case. So at least I will have memorized one case that exemplifies this. Perhaps I want to just memorize this, remember this, without memorizing any particular study. This is kind of analogous with language. I could just learn something, one grammatical rule, in abstract. I don't know. Before this kind of words, nouns, uncountable nouns, the article, it's not with the exception of this and that. You can already tell I don't do this because I cannot even recall one English grammar rule out of the bat. So what I do, spoiler alert, what I do is the other way around. I will have some sentences that I am applying this rule already. And I have to recall that. And if there are exceptions, the sentences will use those exceptions. So implicitly, I know, hey, that is what it's supposed to do, but in this case, it's irregular. It's this instead. And yeah, I will memorize that word particularly. That phrase. But then, with repetitions, overall with time, I will do the abstraction anyways. That's why sometimes, yes, I can fully say the sentence that I used, the context, or the interesting part of the sentence, the phrase, not the entire thing. But most of the time, I don't. And even if I do, it's not a big deal, because then when I see another sentence, it's, hey, it's as important as this. Like he did, hey, this case is like the casino. Oh yeah, because I remember the casino perhaps was my first exposure to this topic. I identify that. So for me, it's enough. Then, by going back to the topic instead of the analogy, I have this there is another study about, the Oxford study, I think it's called, about the behavior with students that they had to cancel because they were super violent and so on. If it was unethical and so on, it's, hey, This is like this other trial, like the, what was the name? Tuskegee Syphilis study. So I use this as an anchor. If I want that, I will create a card for it. That means that I need to memorize some details to remember some of the details of that study. If it happens that I discovered this study through incremental reading, it's not something that I already knew from my past before I used Supermemo. So in this case, I will remember, oh yeah, these studies because they wanted to know the A/B testing was treated and untreated. And it was in the long term, was 40 years. I don't know why they used particularly African American men. Second, why this ethnicity? It's because it reacts different. What happens? That I'm not familiar with syphilis. I think syphilis is like some virus that can be infection, yeah. It gets in Spanish, but no worries, I can just click on English. Yeah, okay, I was not sure. Yeah, sexually transmitted infection, okay. But this affects, one of the questions I cannot answer now is, was this decision random? Was because of they were low budget, they abused the social economic power of those 100, several hundred people? Or they have chosen this because they have like more exposure, it's easier for them, or I don't know what could be the case. But already what I see is, hey, look at the pictures. Which ethnicity is that? Which ethnicity is that? Right? Huh. But regarding of this, this falls already outside of the example. So let's assume that I don't know about that. I will have to investigate a little. If I do, yeah, this makes sense because syphilis is the main demographic is this race. Yes, it's a few hundred because the N is enough. And why Alabama and not any other place? I don't know. But the point that I want to focus is that why it was unethical. Well, because they could treat them. They could treat those few hundred men, and they did not. That is unethical. Then, once I have this, I will take this example. I know it's unethical. I want to remember why it was unethical. Oh yeah, they deliberately untreated syphilis when they could. Then I also want to recall by the name. So if this is mentioned anywhere, just by the name, yeah, the Tuskegee syphilis study. Yeah, this unethical study that involved a few hundred African American men with syphilis. I know syphilis already, it's in the title. Where? This is giving me already context. But now I have AI. So what I ask now in the void, I can ask ChatGPT about it. And then if I do care, I will fact check that. So why they do selected only African American men and not other ethnicities. Usually I don't even care about typos. If it's a word that doesn't exist in English, I know that ChatGPT can tolerate those typos. If it was some other word, yeah, this could mislead, but other than that. Okay, the second reason is what I said, the economic and social exploitation. Racism, illegal social protections. Yeah, could be the case that, hey, you in the US, you cannot afford healthcare. Hey, you can get in this study and get treated or not, depending if you're in the control group. If you're in the control group, you're screwed. But you don't know, because if you know you're in the control group, it won't be blind. The study won't be blind, right? But since I'm pretty sure this is a known case, I'm pretty sure I can find other articles and dig further. Real sources, not AI training. Nice. Then let me ask, what is Thomson sampling? I ask this because I generally don't know. Use probability theory for solving multi-aimed bandit problems. Oh yeah, applications, clinical trials. Okay, so goes into sense that James' article is about exploration, exploitation. Coming the recommender systems, okay. Online advertising, okay. But for the link, the semantic link here, the connection, is because the application in clinical trials can be used to allocate patients to different treatments arms in clinical trials, balancing the need to learn about new treatments. Exploration, with the need to give patients the best known treatment. Exploitation, okay. Even just in case, I already got it, but just in case, I could ask, how does the Thomson sampling relates to the, what was the name of the case? I'm lazy, I don't want to, I'm not familiar with this. Tuskegee and Syphilis. Here we go. The lazy approach. And I know I didn't capitalize that. I don't need to. There are some ways to conceptually relate, especially when discussing ethical considerations. Here you go. In the decision making. The Tuskegee syphilis study serves as a historical example of unethical research practices. The connection between them, between the Thomson sampling, relies primarily on the realm of ethical considerations and the importance of responsible decision making in research. Applying principles like those in Thomson sampling and in clinical context will aim to avoid the kind of exploitation and harm exemplified by this study. Yeah, because perhaps mathematically, the best case is to exploit that, because it will yield the best results, the most knowledge, insights from the study. Yes, but you're not treating numbers or animals, which is a controversial topic, by the way. No, they are humans. So you're messing with a few hundred lives. So you're gonna not exploit that in the same manner that if they were rats or plants. Then I will mention my GPD, the flashcard maker Lee, and make Q&As to remember all what I have asked you related to syphilis study and ethics. Make comparisons against or with Thomson sampling. Oh my god, what I am discovering is that if I verbalize what I'm typing, I have to type a lot slower. Oh my god. Now I get the same as before. What was the study? Who did that? When it took place, sorry. Who did that? The US public healthcare. Why it was unethical? But this is new information now. Why were only African American men selected? So why the sample was for this? Oh yeah, racial prejudices. Because of economic exploitation. They are, that's the keyword. Yes. Vulnerable targets. Why? Because, simplifying. Because the other, let's say, white men, the average American white men, will have higher salaries and they could afford healthcare. So they will not need to go in a study. Now, how did the economic and social exploitation affect the selection? That is the other way around, and by the way, I didn't write this until now, limited healthcare access. This already is implicit that you are familiar with this. In my case, I am. I know how America healthcare works. It's a lot different than the country I live in Spain. That just because you're a citizen, you have already healthcare granted. It's a human right, the access to healthcare. So I will have the flashcards of why it was like that, what it led that, and it led to the reasoning, why it was unethical, and how this relates to exploration exploitation. Let's see if I got those by AI. If not, I will create the cards myself. That Thomson sampling, okay, how is Thomson sampling applied in clinical trials? Fair treatment allocation, nice. So I know the definition already, and I want to remember the definition. What is a key ethical difference between Thomson sampling and the Tuskegee study? The ethical framework, okay, that's not a full answer for me. operates an ethical framework, unlike the study that was not ethical. This is super speculative. Sorry, this is not in the text. I don't know if this study is in the training data, but I will, if I do care, I will have to verify that. It nowhere says that terms were broken of informed consent. It's very likely, but I don't know. What was the major ethical violation? That's a good example. That's a good flashcard. What was the major ethical violation in the Tuskegee study? Withholding effective treatment. They had penicillin. They had the treatment. They knew the treatment required for this disease. And they didn't do it just to see the control group with no treat, how they develop. And it's okay, perhaps you did it for a few weeks. Could it still be ethical? I don't know where the limits are, where you draw the lines, if it's just a few weeks. But it's 40 years. Oh my god, that is almost, you neglect this for the rest of your life. So, these men sign up this, that, hey, yeah, I don't want to be treated, or likely to be treated, because I will not know if I am in the control group. So it's 50% chance if there are two groups, or third if there are three, I don't know. I haven't read the article. But basically, there's a chance you will not get your disease treated for the sake of science. Yeah, I want that, and I signed it. That's what, it's very likely didn't happen, and this is the flashcard about that. But it's speculative. I need to verify this. How does Thompson sampling handle decision making under uncertainty? Updates knowledge. Hey, that makes the semantic connection with learning. James is reading this article about exploitation and exploration. And he mentioned already that this applies to learning. Here you go, this is a connection, updates knowledge. That means that today I have some knowledge, previous knowledge. If I read more about this topic and something else, next repetition, in 140 days, I think it was, I will have more knowledge. I will have updated my knowledge. So this could change my decision making, influence my decision making, and make a different choice, even though there's still uncertainty. I don't have all of the information required to make the optimal choice. I have less uncertainty. I have more information, more knowledge, but not all of it. It's a more informed decision, but it's still a partial decision. Nice. Then, how would principles of Thompson sampling be applied in medical research? Minimize harm. Yes. So perhaps you cannot delete, remove all of the harm, but at least you minimize it. It's already a win. And ensure ethical treatment and informed consent in experiments. So let's say that I have cancer and they told me, I know this from someone else. I will apply it to me for privacy. So let's say that I know I have cancer and they told me, hey, there's an experimental medicine. We don't know the outcomes. It's very experimental. But hey, if you do nothing, it's very likely you will die in 2 years, at the most optimistic estimation. If you do this, I don't know what could happen. It could increase your lifespan, perhaps not, perhaps just the quality of it, so you will die eventually anyways in 2 years, but you will feel better. You could socialize with your family on those 2 years. Or perhaps it will even cure the cancer, right? It's okay. So I sign this up, then I get this treatment, and oh shit, I die in 3 months. Well, that was a risk you accepted. But even though you were, you know what I mean? So in this case, I could relate to this because I already have one memory of that. So I will add in my own notes here. Oh yes, like this person I don't want to mention that had that. Then, last one. What historical lesson can be learned from the Tuskegee study? The importance of ethics and research. This could be useful as a redundant card. So I'm asking the same question, but more implicitly. So I'm not saying, hey, what was unethical about this study? No. What can be learned from this study? What was the historical lesson? Hey, yeah, the importance of ethics. I haven't mentioned it was unethical. It's a good redundant card. Then what I didn't got from AI is the exploration and exploitation. Oh yeah, it's here. So what I want is at some point in the text, exactly, I want that, is AI. In this context, gathering information equals to what? Exploration. And using the current knowledge equals to what? Oh yeah, exploitation. So I can also create that. Let's do one experiment. I will select this, cite this, and ask for an answer. Make Q&As which answer are exploration, colon, and exploitation. Again, I don't mind the typos. Only in the case that I see that, oh, it got something else, then I will invest my time to correct the typos. Oh, I see it repeats all of the Q&As and just adds. Okay. What is the role of exploitation in decision making? So in this case, I have the generalization already. So perhaps if I should create my flashcards, I will have started with this example. It is a study. And then later on, perhaps I will have discovered that, hey, it's the same for this study and this one. So I will make the generalization that perhaps is in the all medical clinical trials. But then it's, hey, you know what? It's not just the medical trials. It's just decision making. It doesn't have to be decision making in clinical trials. So it's even more abstract, more generalized. So what is the role of exploitation in decision making? Use current knowledge. Nice. And what does exploration benefit in the long-term decision making? Gathering new information. It's not exactly how I will phrase it, but yeah. If you're new, you're not that good in making flashcards and formulate that, that's a start. That's better. It's very likely this is better that if a noob starts and do a super long paragraph. Even if you start with this and you copy and paste this to Supermemo, you can iterate on that and make it your own. Make it more personal and with your own words. So that is a quite long response of what I will do. And yeah, could you ask? Yes, it took me 3 years to respond. It's not the best, but it's one approach. And then I will have to do it myself in my genuine collection. And with some time, I could share with you, hey, those are the genuine flashcards I created in the state they are today. Because I can tell you, I will not just do verbatim copy-paste. I will do copy-paste and get some of them, for sure. But I will do slight modifications. And I will assign different priorities. So, hope this has been helpful. And let's continue with the video incrementally.